Hi everybody! Today I'm showing you how I finished off my personal commandment cards. If you haven't seen the first two videos, I suggest you go back and check out those two first. I'll link to them in the notes. For this card, I had accidentally used the phrase I had already used on another card. Whoops! So I had to fix it. After I painted over the phrase with white gesso, I'm using Liquitex white gesso here. I hit it with the heat gun and then added a second coat. I then set it aside to dry because I did not want to ruin my pen by writing over acrylic paint that I thought was dry and that wasn't. Trust me, I've learned the hard way by ruining multiple pens by writing over gesso that wasn't dry. As I talked about last week, I sat down and sketched out multiple versions of lettering for each phrase. This gives me options when I go to letter on the cards. Plus, the brainstorming process meant I came up with ideas I wouldn't have come up with if I'd only tried for one design. It worked out well for me here. In this case, I chose the lettering and then chose the card that would work with it. I like to sketch out my phrases before I use a pen, and I'm comfortable erasing and trying multiple times before I commit with ink. I'm not usually very finicky, but I am with these cards. So as you can see here, these are my sketches for the phrase Family First. I chose the one in which Family First is in the center, but the phrase repeated around the border. But I ended up picking a card with an oval design, and I decided those would work well together. I'd really love to hear what your personal commandments would be if you were to make personal commandment cards. If you do make personal commandment cards, I'd love for you to share them with me. Link below in the comments. And please, if you have a second, hit the subscribe button. Here I'm using a T-ruler to make sure my writing is straight. Plus I like to draw lines for the height of my letters too for consistency. I did sketch everything out with pencil first, but for the sake of time and for the sake of not boring you, I cut that out. I've drawn a banner here and I'm coloring it with a green acrylic paint marker. Again, I'll set this aside to make sure it fully dries before I write on it with my felt tip nib. As I left it overnight, I'm going to go ahead and finish it. I decided to use a Copic Marker for this banner, and to be honest with you, I'm really not so sure I'm glad I did. A Sharpie might have been a little bit darker with a sharper nib and therefore easier to read. Don't take it personally. I think if I had to choose one personal commandment, it would be this. If I think of all the times I was hurt or had conflict with someone, so often it was the result of me taking things personally that were really not meant to be personal. And a good way to avoid taking something personally is to laugh often. Right now, everything that has come to a head with race relations, I think this is a commandment we could all benefit from. I am reading a book called So You Want to Talk About Race. It has helped me understand this issue so much better. I highly recommend it and will link below in the notes. If you like the brush lettering look, a tip is to thicken the downstrokes. I think this card ended up being my favorite in terms of design because the design matches the content so well. By the way, I like to do little jigs and dance a lot and listen to music while I'm creating, so that's what that was right there. Anyways, the reason I love this card so much is that the design matches the topic so much. So after I used that circle template to draw my arc and write my phrase, I'm decorating here with confetti. That hexagon, by the way, came out of a board game where I punched out the pieces and I used the leftover as a template. Now, in terms of lettering, I think this is my favorite card. I had fun figuring out a design for this one. I used the S in wise for the S in speech as well. Wise speech is a teaching in Buddhism. It's the 4 qualities of speech that are speech that is helpful, timely, truthful, and coming from a place of kindness. I used a charcoal pencil here. I like to use this to shade around the edges and then take a paintbrush to smooth it out. Now I'm adding the embellishments. On this card, I'm adding shading to the banner and then creating a squiggly border. This pen, by the way, is the Tombow Fudenosuke brush pen. Ah, that's a mouthful. On this card, I wanted to add dimension to a couple of the boxes, but then I decided it looked silly to have 2 boxes, 3-dimensional, but not the other 2. So I added shading to all of them. The glitch, however, was that I really didn't have enough room for that, so I really had to squeeze it in. Oh well, that's what happens when you're working on the fly, right? Love Always. I think this is my favorite card in terms of design. I like the way the moon looks on the background. Again, I'm using a charcoal pencil and shading it around the circle. After that, I add a little bit of Winkostella to a couple of the stars to make them twinkle. For this card, I'm using a silver metallic acrylic pen to do some extra embellishing. I find that this charcoal pencil works best on matte acrylic paint. If it's glossy, it just slides right off the paint. While I do have a white chalk pencil, I will sometimes use in place of the charcoal pencil. I decided this time that I would use a white Inktense pencil and then use a slightly wet brush to smooth that out just a little bit. I think it worked fine. It wasn't quite as bold as I had hoped it would be. I found a tutorial on Pinterest that showed me how to create this banner, and I will link to that in the notes. I'm slowing everything down here so I can show you my finished cards. I will eventually add quotes to the back of these, but for now I'm just going to use these as is. I really hope you enjoyed watching these, and if you haven't already, I would really love it if you would hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to tell me in the comments what your personal commandments would be. I look forward to reading those, and if you do happen to create your own personal commandment cards, don't forget to tag me or share them with me somehow, because I would really love to see what you come up with.